possible for each school that you send it to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great advice. Vibranium Steelix one asks thoughts on walk-ons and trying out without being recruited.
Interesting question. So terminology walk-ons is actually different. I talked to a coach yesterday, and I saw this question and that brought up to him, and his first response was, well, I definitely do walk-ons, because a walk-on to him means I recruited that player, but I didn't give them any money. That they were given an offer, but it was their role to get into school and their role to pay their own way. That's a walk-on to a college. My recollection of walk-on, when I asked that, and I think this is what the question comes from, is there a pre-season tryout or an annual tryout after you've gone to school? And the answer to that is, at the highest levels, not really. There are exceptions to every rule here, but generally, because the larger schools have roster limits, they have to get all that stuff kind of situated in advance, and they can't really do walk-ons. But as the schools get smaller, or in special circumstances where openings popped up, again for attrition, where say I've lost some players and have to fill in some gaps, then they certainly can get custom walk-ons. If I look at Santa Cruz, actually, I talked to a coach that coached at Santa Cruz for a while, and that's an anomaly, and that's a volleyball beach town, where a lot of players who may not try to get recruited are there. And so if they're short, they can get a pretty large turnout on a traditional walk-on tryout. So that happens all over the country. So the short story of that is, yes, there are opportunities, but they're limited and fewer and farther between.
I have a success story from some of those exceptional opportunities. Brant Ing, our libero from the tall ones. So he admittedly is not the most athletic player. Like, if you look at him, he doesn't have a huge vertical. He's not super explosive, but he's obviously a very, very, very skilled player, very skilled libero. And he was the 5th libero to walk on at Pepperdine, one of the best men's teams in the nation. And it was just constant persistence. Emailed Coach Marv, and you have to reach out to the right coach too. Coach Marv Dunphy is the type of coach to give people opportunities, right? He's just a really stand-up guy. And he told him, he's like, I don't have a spot for you, but you're welcome to come to the university and just give it a shot. But I've already recruited 3 other liberos. And so he came on, he went to the university. In the summer, he trained, told him, sorry, you got to come back next year, try, work on certain things. But one guy quit. So he asked him again. He was like, hey, I heard a guy quit. Is there any spot open? He's like, no, not yet. And then another guy quit from academics. So then now it's only down to 3. And then he got invited to practice. And he just kept grinding. And he eventually made it on the roster. And then it narrowed down to him. And one year it was only down to 2 liberos, him and the starting libero. But persistence for sure, and finding the right program that does take walk-ons.
I love stories like that, because as a coach, I believe that volleyball is an opportunity to grow skills that work well in life. Mm-hmm. And that same grit, that determination and desire will work in every aspect of your life, not just volleyball. And so he's learned something very valuable that probably either he brought to the table, but if he learned it during volleyball, that's fantastic.
Yeah. If Grethen 1 asks, if you're recruited for any college whatsoever, do you still have to take SATs and ACTs in general? And do you always have to go through a regular student's admission process?
What do you think the very first question a coach generally asks a player?
What are your grades?
What are your grades? The very first question almost across the board is going to be, what are your grades? It matters. You still have an admission standard. You still have to take what it takes to get into the school. They have very little wiggle room. They'll honestly say there's no wiggle room. You have to be able to qualify to get within the minimum standard of the school, and that includes ACT, SAT, that includes grades. So I've heard of countless stories of players that have either lost opportunities or not had opportunities because they're not as academically minded. And it's still an academic environment. You still have to be a student athlete, student being first. And That's an important part of this whole thing is volleyball is our passion. We can all feel why volleyball would be our priority. But from the school side, it's not. The school is the priority. And honestly, in having seen it and gone through it, at the tail end, it's the most important piece is find some place that's also academic fit. So schools will want to see that, and they need to see that. And again, that's why a lot of the more successful schools will go back to Stanford or Princeton or MITs or, it goes on and on and on. These types of schools will recruit later, not because they don't want the talent, but because they have to see that you've gone through your junior year and had enough success to even be able to qualify to be talked to. So you might make a watch list, but they're not really going to engage with you too much until they know that you qualify academically.
Yeah. And John's not referring to having like a 4.0 or 5.0 GPA all the time. That would be really great. But I think the general principle is coaches don't to worry about whether you're going to be eligible for a season, because you're not taking care of your schoolwork and, doing well in school, getting straight B's, mixtures of A's and C's. Like if you're trying your best and you're responsible, you're passing your grades, that's going to show also about your work ethic on the court. Like if you're going to take your school seriously, there's going to be a good chance you're going to take your training seriously. Coaches don't just want a bunch of beach bums. They want the beach bum mentality of loving volleyball, but you got to take care of your life off the court too. TV Total Forever 1 asks, what are the qualities that are most common in athletes and college players that actually make it?
Well, I think we'll go back to this whole grit thing, right? I think that when all comes said and done, I think that having the mental attitude and the ability to work through difficulties and to continue to evolve would all relate to the mental side, to the grit side. It's an intangible that's harder to find, but it's one of the pieces that coaches are looking for. Interestingly enough, so many players, once they've made a watch list and coaches will come out to see them, and they're so focused on their errors or how they achieved in that, and talking to coaches, that's really not what they're looking at. By the time that they know that you have the ability to compete in their gym, they're immediately looking for who is going to meet these intangibles that's going to succeed in their environment. What do you look like on the bench? When you're struggling, how do you react to that struggle? How do you react with your teammates? What is your attitude off the court, away from the bench? How do you respond when you meet them or when you talk with your coaches? These are all intangibles that really are the majority of what they're looking at when they're watching you, but nobody even thinks of those things.
Yeah. And I think for coaches, we can understand that perspective, loud and clear. But from a player's perspective, another great story from John Dunning, former Stanford women's coach, I think 4- and 5-time national championship. He was interviewed after, and the reporter was asking, and Cynthia Barbosa, she has negative percentages, hitting negative, passing negative. Why'd you keep her on the court? And he just simply said, we've learned that statistically, when she's off the court, everyone's numbers goes down. When she's on the court, everyone's numbers goes up. So, but you can't describe that. And, that's one thing that we value is her leadership, her intensity, but how she affects other players. And that's something that coaches definitely would love, is the intangible part.
I have another one on the flip side of that. Actually, a coach at a D1 level in a big game had a very successful, statistically, outside hitter. And the coach pulled him. And the question was, why did you pull that player? Yeah. And the coach's answer is, I didn't like their energy and it wasn't helping the team. Yeah. So it's a team sport. And all 6 players, actually the whole team, has the ability to both raise or lower the bar. And it's not about individual play. It's how do we keep all 6 playing on the court. So it happens, and it's definitely the intangible that coaches understand is extremely important to be successful.
Yeah, definitely. Eddie Tondo BR1 asks, how does your program apply for foreign country players?
Actually, foreign recruiting is getting more and more prevalent. It's not uncommon at all. And I think the process probably is very similar, which is you need to get in front of them and send emails to them, show them what you do, and get on their radar. If you're a good fit with them academically and athletically, there's lots of ways to make things happen. So follow the same process. Again, I'm happy to help, or it's just there's nothing that I'm doing that's not possible on your own. I'm just making it simple and easier and helping you guide the process. So get seen by coaches. Get out there and contact them and make it happen.
Yeah, so all those foreign fans out there listening, just send a message to John on his website, volleyvideo.com. And I know if you're not familiar with the system, he's there to provide you all the most updated information about NCAA, NAIA regulations, and how to navigate and how to contact people. So just reach out to him. All right, let's move on to the Instagram questions. Tweezy25 asks, when should an athlete start putting together videos?
That is a great question, and there's not one answer to that. Division I teams, again, they can contact you as early as June 15th before your junior year. So nationals is happening right around then. If you're in the club scene, you need to be reaching out to coaches before the major tournaments of that summer. So when they're there, if they're there, they will see you. If not, there's a lot of recruiting happening, but you want to be in the opening window. If you're looking at Division II, III, NAIA, you have a longer window, and you can send them out junior year if you like. But I say as soon as you have something that you've done the research, you've found the schools, you've put together your video, you have good footage of what you're doing, it's time to send it to them. Get on their radar. Again, before junior year preferably, but that just means you're being seen. Doesn't mean you'll be talked to until even senior year. I would say the other part of this is it's a lot of times a one-way communication. You're reaching out, much like a job search. 95% of the stuff you send out echoes back. Doesn't mean they didn't see it. It doesn't mean that your play level wasn't high enough. It just means that maybe they didn't have a fit for what you were. You could be the best middle in the world, but if I have a bunch of middles and I don't recruiting any middles this year, then I'm not going to reach back out to you. Liberos, they usually have 2 to a roster every 2 years apart. They don't need a lot of them. If you're reaching out as a libero in an off year, they're not going to reach back out to you. So a lot of it's just about opportunity and exposure. So get yourself exposed. Keep reaching out. Don't be afraid to reach out more than once. And just because they haven't responded doesn't mean that they don't want you. It just means they haven't responded yet. So it doesn't hurt you to keep sending out to the coaches that you think you're a good fit for. I would say that dozens of emails are important, dozens of schools, and reaching out. I've found honestly in the kids that I'm helping get recruited that most of them have gotten contacts back from coaches, not from every coach, but some coaches. And so It may not be one for every 200, just to kind of lighten it a little bit. Honestly, I think 100% of the clients I've have had responses from coaches, and probably half of them I've actually had interactions and had them come see them or had official visits.
That's great.
So I'm coaching, some pretty high level players, but there'll be a fair amount that will respond to you, maybe 10%. But do your research and be diligent and enjoy the process. Honestly, it's all very exciting.
Yeah. David Valdez asks, how do you get started in the recruiting process?
Shoot films of your games. I've got some tips around on where to shoot from, but shoot film, capture your best moments, do the research. There's lots of ways to find out, if you can get some advice from your coach or a service like mine that can help you identify the level you should be at. Certainly most of the questions though are going to be self-reflection, which is what do I want to do in life? Where do I want to be in life? You know, am I in state, out of state? Do I have the financial resources to pay out state tuition, or am I an in-state student? Do I want to be away from home? Do I, you know, there's just a lot of pieces that are really all about self-reflection and what you're looking for. Again, this is a pretty large decision, right? What do I want to do for the next 4 years of my life, and what do I want to be in life? And volleyball. But it's not just volleyball, because things can go wrong with that. I guess I'm being a parent for a minute. Volleyball is a life gift, as you and I can both attest. We have our friends and our lives have wrapped around this sport. It's a gift. But playing in volleyball in college, you know, is just one avenue of that. And that could be taken away by an injury or by COVID or by anything. And so, but what they can't take away is your academics and what your interests are, what you're going to be doing for the next 40 years of your life. Mm-hmm. So keep perspective on that. Make sure you find a place that's a good fit for you. If you don't find a college that ends up being a fit, club volleyball extends through college, can be a very high level. Yeah. You can find a college that has a good club program. If that's a desire, that can be part of your piece. As you know, you run tournaments. We've all played, you know, recreationally, but at a high level. We go to local gyms playing with ex-collegiate athletes. Mm-hmm. It doesn't end here. It doesn't begin here. It's just part of the process of being a volleyball player. And the gift of it to me is not just physical, but it's the relationships and the friends. And so just because you don't play on a college team, if you don't play on a college team, doesn't mean college volleyball is over or volleyball is over for you. It's actually just beginning.
Yeah, and club volleyball is another great consideration. I played club at San Jose State University, and I was very fortunate to have an excellent coach, Ron Whitmill, who is John's brother-in-law. But definitely some of the best volleyball I've played, and I just continue to keep working and keep enjoying volleyball, playing with John on an adult team, and then forming my own adult teams and finding my own opportunities. You can play IMs in college. And like John said, it's about finding the right fit, both academically and sports-wise.
Yeah, and I actually have players that come back now. You know, they started as a junior or a senior in high school, and I coached them in high school, or they were late club players. And they come back, and they are heavily involved with the volleyball community. It's changed their relationships in college and where they've gone. They're playing 9-man tournaments now. Mm-hmm. They're playing, you know, in club volleyball. They're playing, and so there are a lot of opportunities. This is just one piece of the opportunities.
Yeah. All right, we're down to our last question from Instagram. Ben Cod 1 asks, what are colleges looking for most in a recruitment video overall? Are they looking for overall performance, leadership, or really specific things? To put it this way, would a college rather take someone with a recruitment video that is mediocre but has a few really good plays, or a video that is all around consistent but is between mediocre and really good?
Your first introductory email to coaches, which will contain information about you, information about what you think of their program, and a highlight video, is really all just a quick filter to decide whether or not you can play at their level, at the level that they're at. So the initial goal is really to just for them to decide whether or not your abilities will compete in their gym. And eventually we'll be able to add to their gym as you develop, athletic ability-wise. And so what I've heard from coaches is just that, which is I'm not looking at the skills. I'm looking to see whether what they're doing is going to be able to compete with the team they have right now in the gym. So your highlight video is really just showing your athletic ability, your specs that you're putting in the email. Talks about your height and your touch height and your accolades, both academically and athletically, or just to help them filter through who you are and whether you meet their requirements and whether or not you will add to their program. Mm-hmm. And then it builds from there. So that's how you get on a watch list. So again, your first idea here is just to get on their watch list. Make sure you're a fit. And you're also shopping them too. Eventually you might hear back from 1, 2, maybe a dozen colleges if you're lucky, and you will have conversations with them to see whether that you're also a good fit. They're a good fit for what you're looking for. So your video should highlight your skills. If you're an outside hitter, you're doing a lot of pieces on the court, so you have to highlight a little bit of all of them, but you want to highlight the best of what you do. Each position is going to be a little bit different, so you're going to customize that. And if your strength as an outside is passing or serve receive, you might put that first as a priority and add other pieces later. But you're going to have you have to basically show the cross section of what you do and how well you do it. And the other piece I'd add to that is the intangibles. They're also looking at the level you're playing against. If I'm getting kills against not a great team, a high school team that can't get the ball back, they're going to go, okay, well, they're going to disregard some of that. You also want to find footage that's at the highest level that you've played at. If you're at a nationals tournament or if you're at a bid tournament, what region matters. Actually, I had coaches tell me that literally just only put Southern California tournaments in, because it doesn't matter. We just believe all Southern California teams are going to be the best teams, and so you're playing at a good level if you just show us playing down there. Having been exposed to teams all around the nation, I don't think that's universally true, but that's a mindset of coaches, which is I need to see what level you're playing at and where you're succeeding. Mm-hmm. So find the highest level, find your best skills, highlight who you are and what you are, and get seen, right?
Yeah. All right, so those are all the top questions that you guys gave us from YouTube and Instagram. Thank you for posting them and putting thought into them. John, do you have any closing remarks you want to add to this discussion?
I would say that the process is overwhelming on the surface, that it feels like there's a lot to be done, but it's not really overwhelming. It's not overcomable. You need to just attack it in a methodical way, and don't be afraid to jump in there and start the process. And there's lots of information out there, but most of the decisions are going to be in your court. And if you need some extra help, if you need some consultation or help with video, if you're a high-level player looking to do higher level things, I'm here to help if you need it. But if I'm not, or if I'm not going to fit for you, just don't be afraid of the process. And the process is yours to hold, not somebody else's. Don't expect someone else to do this for you. If you want it bad enough, just start putting in the work. It takes time.
And I'm going to highlight again John's unique perspective. He's a special guy because he's played at a high level as an adult volleyball player, so he just understands the game from that perspective. He's coached at a really good level, both in high school and in club. He's a volleyball parent, and he's also seen his own son go through the recruiting process at one of the top universities in the nation. And then now he's a consultant for people that are college bound and want to play at the next level. So he's got an all-in-one perspective. So I think it's very, very special to have access to someone like him. I'm going to add a few things, just kind of my own experience with helping kids get recruited to college. I'm not a specialist like John is, but coaching high school and in club for, 13, 14 years. I don't even keep track anymore. I've helped students. My school, Mission Hazard High School, is very academically focused, and John touched upon this earlier, where usually a lot of the Division III schools have great academic programs, especially science programs in my experience. So if you're looking for, if school is a little bit higher priority in terms of, I want to make sure I go to a very, very strong program, there's just tons of great Division III programs out there that do provide great volleyball opportunities. MIT, I actually had a player that got recruited for basketball and volleyball at MIT. And then for Division I had a player from club who was very raw, who didn't start playing until her junior year of high school. She never played a sport, but she's 6'3" and just naturally athletic. And her dad said, you have to play sports. You're taller than I am. You have to play sports, at least give it a shot. And her senior year, I was contacted by a university, a private university somewhere in the Midwest, saying, we're looking for a tall middle who is athletic. Do you have any recommendations? And I said, you know what? I have a great kid, very little experience, but she's learned so much. And it's like, we're looking for someone to mold. We already have a veteran senior, and we're looking for that veteran senior to mentor someone. And we want someone to be able to mold to be like her in her senior year. So it's, you know, part of it is luck and being ready for those lucky opportunities, right? You finding that good fit. So yeah, just reiterating a lot of what John said of it's about knowing self-reflection, and being honest with your skill set and your potential and what you want, and trying to make sure you block out the noise of what other people want for you. And I mean, it's your life at the end of the day. And then, you know, involving your parents in the process. I know we've said some things, constructive things for parents earlier. Their parents are there to help you, and don't be afraid to ask them for help. You know, can you record this video? Or, you know, what should I say to this coach? Can you proofread this email?
Right.
You know, they're also there to help you in that process too.
Good advice.
So if you guys have any other questions for John, or if you're interested in trying out his consulting service, I'll leave all his links in the description box so you guys can check out. But other than that, thanks so much for your time, John. I really appreciate all the information and answering the questions.
Man, thank you. I appreciate you and all you're doing for the community. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah. All right. Take care.
All right, Donny. Take care.